What's up everybody, Corey with Freaky Tech Reviews here. I recently dropped a video on the Apple Magic Keyboard for iPad, and while I did have a couple errors in that video, it got me thinking about the overall iPad experience. I have the 5th generation iPad Air that released in March of 2022, and I've been blown away by its performance, especially after upgrading from a 6th generation iPad that was Wi-Fi only that released in 2018. Now, a 4-year gap in the technology space is already significant, but when you look at the M1 chip release that came out in 2020 from Apple, the significance is even greater. And now that the M1 chip is finally migrated over to iPad, wow, it is a huge difference. Apple already has a very snappy ecosystem for their tablet lineup, but when you pair the M1 chip with the small form factor of the iPad, the difference becomes very apparent. Now, the 256GB model that I have comes in at $750. What you get for that large price point is a 10.9-inch liquid Retina display with 2360 by 1640 pixel resolution, an 8-core CPU with 4 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores, an 8-core GPU, 16-core neural engine, 8GB of RAM, 4K video recording up to 60 frames per second, USB-C charging, and a lot of other areas that make the iPad experience fantastic. So my question is, do you really need anything more than the iPad Air anymore? If we look at the different iPad options, we mainly focus on the top 3, being the iPad Pro 6th generation, the iPad Air 5th generation, and the iPad 10th generation. Obviously, the 10th generation iPad is a great budget option if you're looking to enter the Apple tablet space for the first time, but if you start looking for a better and more powerful overall experience, then it's time to set aside the A14 Bionic chip and start looking at the M1 and M2 chips that the other models come with. So our focus really comes down between the iPad Pro and the iPad Air. The iPad Pro 6th generation differences are mainly a 12.9-inch liquid Retina XDR display with ProMotion technology and 120Hz refresh rate. It also comes with an M2 chip with an extra 2 GPU cores at the base model, an ultra-wide camera, ProRes for 4K video, additional speakers and mics, Face ID instead of touch, and the ability to upgrade storage up to 2 terabytes. There are more differences that are a little bit less notable, so I did put a link in the description below so you can see a comparison between the two tablets. The 6th generation iPad Pro was launched in October of 2022, making the Air 6 months older at the point of release. Without knowing the specs of the next generation of iPad Air, which might be announced later this year in fall, the decision really comes down between the iPad Pro and the iPad Air. Now, I've done a lot of research to see what is the online consensus of people's opinion of getting the Pro over the Air, and in large part I found that the differences that the Pro has are almost negligible for the power that you get in the Air. If we look at the 256GB Pro model, which is the same storage as the top-end model of the Air, it's $1,200. And while yes, I did find it online at Best Buy for $1,000, that's still $150 more than the iPad Air. When you're looking at a $450 difference, it really needs to be worth it for you to consider the Air. And I personally feel that people who would actually invest in a tablet as their main workhorse are probably not going to be looking at the lower storage options for the iPad Pro. And as you increase storage capacity on the Pro models, the price shoots up quite a bit because Apple is very proud of their tablet storage space. So when you look at the differences, if you really need Face ID, if you really need a 2-inch larger screen, or maybe that 120Hz refresh rate is super important to you, there's really not a lot of reason to upgrade because 95% of iPad users are going to be more than happy, and it's almost overkill to use the iPad Air. My 5th generation Air has pretty much replaced my 2020 M1 MacBook Air because while they're very similar in terms of specs, the versatility of the iPad is unmatched to the MacBook, and now that I have the Magic Keyboard alongside it, I end up picking it up quite a bit more. So if your tablet is your main workstation, I think yes, you should consider the Pro and looking at some of the upgraded models, but for the most part, I think you're going to be more than happy with the iPad Air. I do feel like there's going to be a lot of back and forth on people who really support the Pro versus the Air, but for me personally, I just can't justify spending that extra money to get the Pro version. So again, this is my personal opinion, but I do really feel that the Air is the better consideration over the Pro because you're already looking at the top end range with the M1 chip in the Air, and unless you just have the extra cash laying around, I really don't see the upgrade being worth it. So I hope this video helps you if you're on the market for a new Apple tablet. If you haven't already, I hope that you would consider subscribing so you can help this channel's growth. But thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate you being here. Again, I'm Corey with Freaky Tech Reviews. I'll see you next time.